Welcome to Sports Geek Throwback. Here's your host, the sports geek himself, Sean Callanan.
G'day, I am Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and welcome to Sports Geek Throwback, where I pick out the best bits from the Sports Geek podcast archive. For this week's Sports Geek Throwback, I go back to episode 333 with Dan Marrazza, published back in June 2023, when Dan Marrazza was Director of Digital Strategy at Pro Football Hall of Fame. Please connect with him on LinkedIn. Remember, if you need help with your digital marketing or sponsorship teams, please get in touch. That is what we do in applying the digital to dollars process to help your team build revenue. In this throwback episode, Dan and I discuss digital stats and why exposure rate is so important. Remember, you can listen to the full episode at sportsgeekhq.com/333.
One of the things you wrote an article and we quoted an article regarding looking at exposure rate as a metric as a sort of a way to, take away the algorithm's effect on what you can do. Because it's like, unfortunately, sometimes at C-level, they look at your follower numbers and then they look at, whatever metrics you're reporting on. Here's how many people liked it, or here's our engagement rate, and those kind of things. And it's like, well, you don't get to control how many people of your followers get to see it. Do you want to explain why you think exposure rate is a metric that works for you, and why it could be useful for others?
For sure, and it has an incredibly interesting origin too. I'm definitely someone who's run with it quite a bit, but I'd be lying if I did not credit an entire village of folks that were part of creating this. And this was really a brainchild that came out of DraftKings, is that our analytics team there these are some of the smartest people I've ever seen in my life. These are MIT math guys. I would always joke, we got 5 Goodwill Huntings down the hallway from us, just because the way they're able to slice and dice numbers. And the thing for us, and I always pride myself on, I'm kind of a common sense person, that I can see the problem is, and how do we figure out what the problem is that we need to solve. And the way this originally started was, okay, we're going to launch our DraftKings Sportsbook, and we're going to have 5,000 followers the first day, and a year from now, we're going to have 100,000 followers, hopefully. And how do we compare our content consistently to ourselves when the business is scaling up and growing so much? So what the metric is that, so we got the math guys in the room, and they start coming up with things that even I could figure out, which, that might be the smartest thing they ever did. It was coming up with something that even I could figure out by hand. Is that, and what the number is for those out there is, it's relating the reach of your content relative to the size of your audience. So, for example, if you have 100,000 followers and the post is seen by 100,000 impressions, it's an exposure rate of 100%. So it relates to the size of your audience. So if you have 20 followers or 2 million followers, is that the new thresholds of what you need to achieve to reach those things change. Another part of the reason of why this came about is engagement rate has always been a popular metric in the past. And I've noticed a lot of flaws in it, where what I would notice would be that post would go viral with 4 million impressions, and it would have like a 0.2 engagement rate. And then you would have another post that had only like 20,000 impressions, and it would have like a 4.2 engagement rate. And I'm like, there's the common sense guy, where I might not be the MIT guy out there, but I know that intuitively that this post with millions of impressions is doing better. And I started to notice that with engagement rate, that there were a lot of flaws in it, and it was very arbitrary oftentimes what numbers were breaking through. So that was part of the origin as well of how this got created. That being said, as it started to be built out and we started to be able to track our performance a little bit more consistency, it also unearthed a couple other things that I've really kind of taken the next step with since I've even left DraftKings. One is not all engagements are created equal, especially when the algorithms are constantly changing. Is that, no offense, Sean, to you and me, but 2 likes from you and me are not the same as a retweet from Justin Bieber. It's not the same impact. But I could say, okay, intuitively, I know the retweet from Bieber is more valuable. Well, how much more valuable is it? And then if you take thousands of engagements within a post, how do you weight all of them simultaneously? And in this case, I'll see this all the time. You'll see a post that got maybe 20 retweets getting further reach from someone who got like 200 just because of the folks that were involved in doing it. Or you'll see the algorithms change that what's more valuable, a like, a retweet, a reply, a quote tweet. these things are always changing. The one thing that doesn't change, though, is if it's breaking through and reaching a wider audience, is that this allows you, as the algorithm changes, to consistently track what's breaking through and do it in a number that makes more sense. Where I know for me, as I've worked in different companies, and I've been really fortunate that a lot of executives who I've worked with, who, even if they don't work in the space, have some literacy in it. But that being said, I can tell them 120,000 impressions and they go, is that good? Is that good? Is that bad? What is that? But if you're able to relate it in a way that's so digestible, that's relevant to the size of your audience, it's a lot more easy for them to swallow, and it's a lot easier for them to understand oftentimes. And then the last part of it was that we said, okay, if we could compare ourselves to ourselves as we've scaled out, we could also compare ourselves to other companies that have different following sizes than us. So rather than, as you would see in pro sports leagues, you'll always see the big market teams in the NBA, the Lakers, the Celtics will always have the biggest bulk numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean, sometimes it does, means they're doing the best, but sometimes it doesn't, because you can't necessarily compare the Denver Nuggets or the Utah Jazz to the Los Angeles Lakers because the brands are so different. So we learned that it was a really effective way also at leveling that playing field, that if you want to compare yourself, whether it's as a pro sports franchise to another team or it's to another company, you're able to say, okay, we're the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We have 300,000+ followers approximately on each platform. But we actually know that relative to the size of our platform, we actually reach more people on Facebook and Twitter than any team in the NFL does. That's a lot more of a number that, internally we're able to gauge performance a lot better. So I think like I said, it's a number that it's certainly helpful to have software involved to help you with it, but it's something that can easily be done even with an iPhone calculator, where you can tell I've done this a few times, and I've spent some nights in the data sheets sitting on my sofa kind of calculating these by hand. Is you just take the number of impressions of the post and you divide it by the number of followers that you have at the time of the post. Comes out to a little decimal. You move it 2 spots to the right. You add your percentage number at the end, and voila, there's your number. And for me, it's been something that's been so effective for communicating internally and so much better for providing context where, okay, I got the numbers out there. I know these things are out there, but providing context, are these good or are these things that could be improved upon? So been a real lifesaver for me. And sometimes when I think of all the years that I worked in sports not having this metric, I'm like, how many times did I think I was doing well when maybe I wasn't doing as well? Or how many times was I maybe discouraged that I didn't think I was doing well when I actually really was? So it's really been a game changer in that regard.
Definitely. I mean, as with all stats, it is about how you do that storytelling for the people who need the story to be told. And that's, normally in most cases when you're looking at these stats, yes, you're looking at it for your own internal use and your team to understand how to do it, but then also, what do the C-level understand? And so, breaking it down, keeping it relatively simple, but also being able to compare, yourselves with other accounts that are of a different size. Because you're right, engagement rate, if you want great engagement rate, cool, don't grow, right? Just stay small and your engagement rates. And so it disincentivizes, your growth, targets to say, hey, grow, when, and then, what things qualify into the engagement rate, you're driving a lot of video, so you're getting lots of views, but it's not getting comments because that's not the algorithm is pushing, it drives the engagement rate down, but it's like, no, we're building an audience with video. So it is a matter of, coming up with those metrics. And I'm the same. I like exposure rate especially when you're in that phase of, hey, we're trying to grow and we want to know how we're doing. It's really effective.
If you like this Sports Geek Throwback episode, please check out the full episode at sportsgeekhq.com. Please share Sports Geek with your sports business colleagues. We appreciate you sharing. We love working with podcast listeners. Please get in touch so we can help your team. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. All Sports Geek episodes are available at sportsgeekhq.com and all podcast platforms.